One of the big guns of organized labor turned against the Ford administration's economic policies today. George Meaney, president of the AFL-CIO, was scathing in his criticism of the present high unemployment rate, which is over 9%. The administration has predicted that unemployment will be in the vicinity of 7.5% at the end of next year. Here's more on the Meaney story from Irving R. Levine.
At a conference on unemployment organized by labor and black groups, speakers criticized President Ford and his economic advisor, Alan Greenspan, for avoiding drastic steps to reduce the number of unemployed.
Mr. Greenspan has no concern, it would seem, in regard to the devastating effects of 7 or 8 million people continually unemployed for the next 4 years or so. To me, the attitude of Mr. Greenspan and the administration which he speaks for adds up to a callous disregard for the misery and suffering experienced by our nation's unemployed.
It causes bitterness. It destroys faith in the structure of this country, economic and political. And just as it could be ignored for a while, as Vietnam was, I remind you that it will ultimately tear us apart unless we can come to grips with it.
While speakers at the $10 a plate luncheon were deploring unemployment, some people who are actually out of work were demonstrating in front of Congress, demanding jobs.
I think that it is time for us to recognize that as we approach...
On the Capitol steps, as at the conference, speakers warned that demonstrations of unemployed people could turn violent in the months ahead unless action is taken by the White House or the Congress to create more jobs. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
President Ford today vetoed the housing bill, calling it inflationary. The measure would have cost more than $1 billion and would have provided subsidies and loans to home buyers. At the same time, Mr. Ford said he is releasing $2 billion in mortgage purchase authority available to the Federal National Mortgage Association. And he asked the Congress to put another $7.75 billion of mortgage money into the association. Tom Brokaw has more on the story.
President Ford, accompanied by Housing Secretary Carla Hills, came to the White House press room to outline his plans for releasing additional federal mortgage money and to announce his veto of the congressional housing bill.
The steps I have announced today are the best way to meet the problems of housing in this country at the present time. I am therefore vetoing H.R. 4485 because it will hamper the recovery now underway and will add to the oversized federal deficit.
Late today, Democratic congressional leaders conceded they don't have the votes to override President Ford's veto. The administration housing program relies primarily on federal mortgage assistance. Administration experts figure the $2 billion released today will finance 65,000 mortgages, conventional or otherwise, and add 130,000 jobs to the housing industry. Here's what it would mean to someone qualifying for a $30,000 mortgage at a participating bank or savings and loan. At 9%, the standard rate these days, that mortgage would cost $241 a month. President Ford's program finances mortgages at 7.75%, a monthly payment of $215, $26 below standard market conditions. President Ford has asked Congress for nearly $8 billion more to expand this program, which Housing Secretary Carla Hills says is guiding the housing industry to recovery. Tom Brokaw, NBC News, at the White House.
Mr. Ford's vetoes are likely to be raised by the Democrats as the 1976 elections get closer, and so will unemployment, now at a 34-year high. And another issue will be the speed of recovery from the recession. Charles Schultz, budget director in the Johnson administration, said yesterday that the American economy during the Great Depression bottomed out in 1933. But after bottoming out, the economy took the rest of the decade to recover.